Chama app. We can help you achieve your financial goals together.
Welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for staying with us. Now, the 7-a-side lineup of the Kenya Kwanza Azimio bipartisan talks is now complete. The list on both sides is out and official. But what is on the table? That's what we want to find out from my guests who are here with us in studio this evening. On my immediate left is the Senate Minority Leader, Stuart Madzayo. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you for finding time for us this evening. And next to him is the Majority Leader in Senate, Aaron Cheriot. Welcome once again. Welcome back to Newsnight.
Thank you. Thank you, Haika.
Great.
To be here.
Great. Thank you for being here. And yes, I know you've waited a little bit. I could hear you muttering. Waited for good reason. And before we jump into the bipartisan talks, it would be unfair of me not to ask, have you gentlemen received your salaries? We have been talking about this the whole weekend, and I would like to know whether that cash crunch has been sorted. Majority Leader?
I received mine on Wednesday last week. So I don't know about this delay that they are talking about. Maybe because in a different bank other than the principal bank where Parliament's accounts are held, sometimes it takes a day or two. So probably that's why there was a delay. But Wednesday, most of us had a salary.
What reasons were you given? I'm sure they were calling you, asking you, Majority Leader, what's going on? I'm sure you must have interrogated further.
They don't call because the other story they won't tell you. And I can reveal this because I've been a commissioner at PAC, is that 95 to maybe 97% of parliamentarians take home less than 10,000 Kenya shillings. It's the first rule of survival in politics they teach you once you get to Parliament.
Where does the rest of the money go to?
Mortgages and other commitments, which in the long run becomes very useful because when you are out of Parliament, whatever you bought with that investment is perhaps the only thing that you'll have to show after your term of Parliament. So it's very important that you do that. Commit your salary so that your brain can work and think of other ways of surviving.
Minority Leader, do you agree with that? Are you comfortable this evening? Have you managed to sort your obligations?
Yes, I think I got my salary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you agree with his assertion that really for most MPs, they were not waiting for their salary because there are so many obligations on them?
Well, of course, if you're getting your salary through a cooperative bank, that's a common bank that Parliament uses. It has its account there, and quite a number of members of Parliament have their accounts there. But I'm not one of them, so I got my salary today. Otherwise, I think it's because of the long holiday. Maybe I could have gotten mine on Thursday, because Friday was a holiday. And therefore, if you got his on Thursday, then it's because it's from the mother bank. And some of us who have other banks apart from cooperative, then we got ours today. So basically, that's what it was.
Minority Leader, go ahead.
With regard to maybe members of Parliament, I would agree. I think the first rule when you come into Parliament, you are told by your seniors who have been there, and we discuss, we talk as members of Parliament to one another. And you hear another person telling you, oh, this is the first thing you have to do. When you come to Parliament, this is what you should do.
Commit your finance.
Commit your salary. Because you never know. Once you leave Parliament and you haven't committed your salary elsewhere, then you live with nothing. Then I think I agree with my brother Cheriot.
Majority Leader, before we jump into the whole bipartisan discussion, obviously, the one question many Kenyans have wondered about as this news came out was, we've gone through some tough moments as a country economically, but we've never had a situation like this. In fact, yesterday I asked my guest on the program that in the 14 years that I've worked in the media, I've never covered a story like this. How did it get this bad?
Two reasons primarily. Number one is the fact that as a country, we've never had a stockpile of debt to the level that we currently have. This is the highest that has ever been since independence. So, of course, the repayment is quite heavy on us, as in you get to a situation where you're collecting maybe 400 billion and having to clear debts of even over and above what you're collecting. That's number one. Number two is because of a policy shift with this that came in with this administration, where we've said we have got to learn to live within our means. Unfortunately, for far too long, we have lived a lie. And it was a time that as Kenyans, we told each other the truth, that good people, we are not as rich a country as we pretend to be out there. Let's live within our means. If it means delaying for a week sometimes so that we don't borrow either irregularly or exorbitantly beyond our means, and sometimes even not as enshrined in PFM, public finance regulations, then so be it. But Kenya must begin the difficult exercise of living within its means, reducing our fiscal deficit. Big difference from how we lived the last 10 years. Because back then, we don't have money to pay salaries, no problem. Reach out to whoever can lend you money. Some sovereign, some commercial, it didn't matter. And due to all that economic mismanagement, here we are today.
Minority Leader, your side doesn't buy into it. You say there's economic mismanagement, they see something totally different.
I think the government has wrong priorities.
How so? You need to be a bit more specific.
Yes, the government must learn to cut down its expenditure. There are quite a number of appointments that have been done of recent, quite a number of them, which actually I don't think they should have been. It was not really necessary to have them immediately. They could have waited and fixed other issues first before getting into that.
For example?
For example, the appointment,
be a bit more specific.
The appointment of CASs. You know very well that once you have the cabinet in place, I think it's more than enough. I don't think you need to go back into all those things. And then at the same time, you know, we previously we have had these career civil servants who have been instrumental in the running of the government administration and advice to the principals. But you'll find of recent, we do not have, I think there is no more career civil servants anymore. Because all the PSs who came in, all either personal friends or people who came from political areas, backgrounds and all that, all those characters who went into the election. And
so what are you saying? You feel there's a lack of competence, experience? What is it that you feel is lacking?
Absolutely. Let's put our priorities right. Once we put our priorities right, then we know exactly how to contain our expenditure. And then I think we wouldn't have gone this deeper into this kind of problem.
Majority Leader, Kenyans are calling for austerity measures if what was seen last week into this week is anything to go by. And they're looking to both of you as their representatives. They're looking to Senate, they're looking to National Assembly. They're asking, can anything be done? Can the executive be checked? Or are you too close to the executive to offer oversight?
It needs to be checked. Two things first. My colleague here cannot try to preach austerity to us because Stewart and myself have been in Parliament for 3 terms now. The last 11 years, the discussion on debt has come to Parliament on 2 occasions. On both occasions, because I believe we were not fiscally responsible and I didn't believe in the mechanism that was being proposed where a static number was being proposed as a debt ceiling. I voted against. My brother, check the records of Parliament, he voted in support. So part of the problem today that we are facing, the fact that you gave government the leeway to borrow from anyone and anywhere without any consideration of where they're going to spend that particular matter, lies squarely in the hands of people like Stewart Madzayo. That was a particular time because we kept on demanding from the administration in office at that particular time that before we grant you the opportunity to go and borrow, let us first understand who are we borrowing from, for how much, when is this going to be due, how do you intend, because remember the previous administration had this very tired line that they kept on misleading Parliament with that, we need to borrow so that we retire the expensive commercial loans that we have taken. Yet there was absolutely no evidence that was placed before us on both occasions that this matter came before the floor of the House. I voted against it on both occasions because I felt that as a country, we were moving into a very dangerous space. Now the chickens have come home to roost. We are in a situation where for almost every 100 shillings that you are collecting, you have between 60 to 70 shillings being taken off immediate, because these are people that you owe money. They are faceless in this country. All they know is that it is due date today. I expect to check into my account, and Kenya needs to have paid its obligation. If they haven't, I flag the markets internationally and globally that Kenya has gone into the red. They are no longer able to meet their obligations. And that begins an even more difficult spiral that you get inflation of almost double digits. Therefore, I agree when Kenyans demand that there's need for austerity.
Senate, from National
Assembly, from Senate, as representatives of people, hold the executive to account, which is true. How do you begin it? You begin, number one, by reducing on your fiscal deficit, which is what Parliament has done, or this administration rather. If you check our supplementary budget that was passed in the National Assembly about 2 months ago, in the month of January or early February, it slashed down spending on development spend and other expenditure that were considered to be non-key in excess of 300 billion Kenya shillings. But of course, the thing is, as you continue to dig deeper into the mess that was left by the handshake administration, then we realize that most of that expenditure is not even booked into our books. So there was just expenditure that you can't trace out of treasury books. Money disappeared. And therefore, we shall be demanding in the next few days, part of the conversation that Parliament now must have is, how do you hold these officers, either be they presently within the administration or those that have since left office, to account, so that in future you never find yourself in a situation as such that we are in, because it's immoral, it's absolutely wrong for the country to find itself in this kind of situation. So number one, reducing fiscal deficit. From 7.2, now we are somewhere in the region of 6.2, perhaps, maybe, because in our BPS, if you read the BPS report of a Senate Finance and Budget Committee, and we passed it 3 weeks ago, we have recommended a drop from the 6.2 to anywhere between 5.5 and 5.8%.
Okay, I want to hold you there because I need to interrogate more on the BPS, but you've said something about him that I want to give him a chance to respond to before he forgets.
No problem.
Yes, he's accusing you of voting in the previous administration to support their recommendations on the debt ceiling, and I think even changing at some point from having a debt ceiling to debt to GDP.
No, they didn't change.
No, not that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, let me say this. There was no handshake administration. There was Uhuru Ruto administration. So the issue of saying that every time we get into a financial mess or something like that, we point out that this was made because of the handshake administration. I don't think that could be true. Because you see, as at that time, as it is, of course, there was handshake because we wanted peace in this country and business to move on as usual and to improve the economy, and so that everybody would go about their ways. But in the administration proper, the deputy president and the president were in control, and that was the administration of the government. So running away from that and saying part of it was because of the handshake, Baba Raila Odinga was not in government.
Did you vote to support an increase in the debt ceiling?
Yes, I did.
Why? Were you satisfied with the reasons that were given for that?
Yes.
Do you have any regrets?
I have no regrets at all. But it's not the one that, actually we can't take it as an excuse that we have sunk to this low.
You don't see a correlation between that and where we are now?
Absolutely.
Okay. For you, Adan, I think what surprises me about the budget policy statement is I think our budget has now moved overall from about 3.3 trillion to 3.6 trillion to a 200 billion increment in a government that promised to cut down appetite for spending, to rein in on that. Most economists that I've spoken to wonder, this government seems to be saying one thing, but doing something different, aided by Senate and the National Assembly.
Not necessarily. This is what you need to appreciate and understand. When we do our BPS, first of all, there is a clear distinction, and this is what you need to distinguish for your viewers. First exercise of a budgeting phase, where we are now, where you develop the BPS, you set it as take it in the room of a building, that's a roof, that's a ceiling upon which you know your budget can never go beyond that, come rain, come sunshine. But as you move closer to the end of the financial year, you are able to see through your revenue collections whether what you're projecting that you will collect in the next financial year is attainable or not. For example, if you read through this, the next financial year's projection, they're estimating anywhere between 2.5 and 3 trillion. Yet, for all intents and purposes, we will be lucky if we cross the 2 trillion mark this current financial year, with all the difficulties that we are having. I think KRA, I saw they released a statement yesterday and said we are somewhere close to 1.6 with almost 2.5 months to go. So we may close to 2 point something. That remains to be seen, depending on how the measures that have been put in place by this administration begins to bear fruits. And of course, many of the phantom projects that were set up by the previous administration, either that we have either completely stopped or found ways of delaying so that we don't have to pay in the immediate. So the right measure for you to look at, Wahiga, will be the actual budget statement that will be laid in the month of June by the Cabinet Secretary for Finance. And mark you, that will be the first budget for this administration. That will be the true mark where you'll be able now to measure and say, are you matching your words with your actions? When you say you want to be fiscally disciplined, when you say you don't want to borrow irresponsibly, when you say that Kenya needs to live within it, means Professor Njuguna Ndung'u's budget statement that will be laid in this parliament on the 7th of June of this financial year.
The first budget statement of the Kenya
That will
Kwanza,
be Kenya Kwanza's first budget statement. That is the time that you can measure us. And believe you me, we shall be proposing measures that will ease off the burden from wananchi with regards to many of the things that they continue to speak to us about, but also setting a solid foundation for us to enjoy the prosperity that we promise the people of Kenya in matters of manufacturing, healthcare, subsidies in agriculture, and many such things that we gave out as promises.
Okay.
But as it is today, few months down the line into office, I mean, unless you expect that there are magicians in office, there is nobody, nowhere. Forget about government. Any organization, even if it was just a simple kiosk, that within 6 months people can see the difference between day and night of what you have achieved. We have to be realistic of the challenges that we face presently and hope that our colleagues in the opposition stop this business of interfering with the governance structure of a country, demonstrations here and every day, causing scares, of course, because every time these people go to the streets, people are watching us internationally. Our debt, not even our political risk indices, they go up higher. People that want to do projects in this country, they shy away. So how are you ever going to grow this economy if you're going to have politics from year 1 to year 5? I mean, a time has got to reach where you say we are now past the political season. Let's get into another season of engaging into more constructive conversation about how we move our country forward.
Okay, Stuart, you can respond even as you also wade into the bipartisan talks, which we are now seeing some way forward on. Go ahead.
Let me make it very clear that you see these demonstrations is trying to castigate or trying to say they are not done in a proper way. I just want to say this. Article 37 of the Constitution allows people to demonstrate, people to present whatever information they want to present to the authorities, people to picket. Yeah, that is allowed. But you saw it. In fact, the people who bore the brunt so much about this kind of a demonstration were the people who are covering the news. Because you know very well that the demonstrators, as it was being displayed, the demonstrators were not carrying anything with them. It only happened when the police started throwing tear gas. I was a victim. I was a victim of a police officer who threw a tear gas at us, and incidentally was close by, and we asked him, "Why are you doing this? We are not armed." And he said he was sorry. And
he apologized.
Yeah, he apologized. I said, "I'm sorry," because he realized. We told him, "We are not armed. We are members of parliament. Why are you throwing this?" Because somebody just took it when it landed and threw it aside. And we approached him. "Now, why are you doing this?" And that's exactly what we are saying. What we are trying to say. Demonstrations, if they are done properly and people are not armed and they are placed a notice to the police, they are legal. Because they are provided under the Constitution.
On the back of that, we now have these bipartisan talks. We've moved.
Now, when you say that when we do demonstration, people get frightened, people all do whatever they want to do, they listen to us. Because who
listens? The government?
Yes. When we want to demonstrate, we are demonstrating because there are certain things which have not been fixed yet. And then we are saying, this is what we want, and this is what we feel can be good for the people. Because our role, basically, is not to say...
So what do you want in the bipartisan... I want to hear from both sides.
No, allow me to say something first about demonstrations before we go to the bipartisan.
Before we go to... brief, because we actually called you here to talk about the bipartisan.
Those are not demonstrations. Those are criminal gangs that are marauding in this city, relieving citizens of their property, of their businesses, harassing innocent civilians. That's not what a demonstration is.
I totally disagree with that.
If Wahiga, you saw what the Nyamakima traders did about 2 months ago, where they walked all the way from Nyamakima up to the office of the deputy president and delivered a petition. That is what is called a demonstration. You have a specific place, you have a specific time, you are unarmed, you complete the demonstration, you go back. You don't threaten people, you don't use offensive language, you don't threaten to go and remove duly elected people from offices, you don't invade public functions and, rain violence on victims.
Wahiga,
that is the problem.
Let me say this, Wahiga. We had more than 20 meetings conducted all over the country. And we were saying we are going to have this meeting at a certain place. People would walk to that place. We would have these meetings in a very peaceful way. And people would retreat and go back home. We had thousands and thousands of people coming to our meetings. Why were they not breaking shops? If we had meetings in Jacaranda, people would come all the way from Westlands. We had meetings in Kampunji.
Okay,
people from the way from wherever.
We believe we've been told are on hold temporarily.
Yes.
Because there's now a bipartisan approach. Minority Leader, let's start with you. What were the instructions in your PG from your party leader, Azimio party leader?
Yes.
On what are the issues? Can you define them for Kenyans today?
Yes. There are a few important things that we have to look at.
That your team is going to champion for in these bipartisan talks. What are they?
In this bipartisan politics, in this bipartisan approach to this matter, all I can say is that first and foremost, we want the food prices to come down. More so things like unga, which all Kenyans, cannot survive without. We are saying things like other food products like maharagwe, cabbages, and many other kind of foodstuffs that Kenyans consume every day.
You're demanding
yes.
to go down. What else? What else are you demanding?
We also want the cost of living to come down. Fuel prices must come down. Electricity must come down. As you live in this country, you realize it's very, very difficult now, even for graduates, to manage to survive, let alone the people who never became graduates. To survive in this country, it is a problem.
Okay, you've made that clear. What else? What else is on that list? I need to give the Majority Leader a chance. So those are your key demands. Was that the message from the party leader?
Yes, and we also demand that the servers be opened, so that Kenyans can know exactly who won this election.
Okay, Majority Leader, you then have a PG earlier today. Message from the party leader, the president.
Nothing extra constitutional, nothing extra legal. Go to Parliament, meet your colleagues from the Azimio side, have a conversation, because that's the right thing to do in the greater interest of a country. They have concerns about the IBC recruitment process, typical Azimio behavior. 2 months ago, Stewart Mazayo and myself received a letter from none other than the Speaker of the National Assembly. The IBC selection panel was being formed. They were asked to nominate a representative. I was asked to nominate a representative, of course in consultation with my colleague from the National Assembly, who will represent Parliament in this selection panel. They waived the opportunity. Of course, Parliament went ahead and proceeded with the process, advertised for the positions, competitively recruited 2 representatives to represent Parliament. Long after that conversation or that train has left the station, our colleagues go to the street. They make all the noise that you can imagine about this selection, that Kenya Kwanza administration is carrying on the recruitment of IBC Commission in isolation of all the other players, which is a complete lie.
Yes,
because they know very well that they walked out of that particular process. Unlike them, by the way, and I must really commend the current chairperson of the Parliamentary Service Commission, because in the 2022 elections, the so-called or the dubbed Cherera 4, this exercise was done by the handshake administration on their own. All the 4 commissioners were nominated by that side of the political divide. We had a problem. We never organized gangs to raid people's shops. We never organized disruptive rallies across the country. We kept our calm and knew that at the end of the day, what matters most is not whoever counts the vote, but that you have the vote in the first place. But of Azimio and their typical obsession, trying to create and build theories that are neither here nor there, have come up with this conversation about, oh, you have to stop this process. We've said, okay, fine. Because Kenya is bigger than all of us, let's have a conversation. Yes. Go to Parliament. You, as parliamentarians, are the same people that passed this law that is being used right now to recruit IBC commissioners. Put together a bipartisan committee. They have proposed 7 names. We proposed 7 names. We will go to that particular committee and listen to what views they have.
How will this committee help me understand?
I want senators.
Okay, fine. Let me
make you understand.
Okay.
No, but wait.
All the knowledge.
Let him understand. Allow him first to ask you the question.
All the knowledge does not end up with parliamentarians. So we are saying this kind of a discussion. We can have 7 on this other side and 7 on the other side, on bipartisan, to approach issues that we believe can bring Kenyans together. Yeah, but when I say that,
you want to bring in other players.
It should not only be parliamentarians alone. We have other people who can contribute, and we are not saying that we want something like a national accord. No.
Your party leaders said something akin to a 2008 national accord.
No. What we are saying is that there are quite a number of key players who can come in also, can come in and help. This is not a process that should be done by members of parliament because they were elected by the people, and therefore that they have that in-depth of knowledge about these things. There are quite a number of people outside there who we can borrow from them whatever knowledge they have and whatever Kenyans need, and then we bring them on board so that we can have, by consensus, all Kenyans coming together, putting their heads together. We can't have...
So, gents, how will this work? Both of you seem to have different briefs.
No. We don't have a problem. By the way, up to that point, we have no objection.
Are you saying we as senators?
As Kenya Kwanza.
As Kenya Kwanza.
I speak for Kenya Kwanza.
Okay.
We don't have an objection if our colleagues from Azimio side feel that they could do with some assistance from a technical group that is working to aid either their submissions or their proposals as a wing of the bipartisan talks. Because I'll tell you for a fact that even us today when we met as Kenya Kwanza, apart from the 7 names that we gave, we propose an additional 6 names of technical people, lawyers, that will guide our team in all these negotiations. 3 of them, I think 3 or 4 members of parliament, and about 2 or 3 that were part.
Can you give us those names?
I think there's a Deputy Speaker, Gladys Sholei, the Honorable David Ochieng, and I think John Kagusha from Mukuruene. Those are the lawyers from parliament. But then we have another 3 that were part of the councils that went to the Supreme Court on our behalf when the president was sued in the presidential petition. Because of their understanding of workings within IBC, because listening to our colleagues, there are things that they are proposing, which to us, we are not instinctively opposed to. There are proposals that they are making and saying, do you think it's right at this particular point? Maybe it's time to review the workings of commissioners of IBC. Do you want to make them full-time or part-time? the operations of IBC, constituency base or at the county level. Conversations that have been around for a while. Remember in 2016, we had similar talks with almost similar questions that were put before the then committees that were chaired by I think Senator Orengo and Senator Kiraitu Murungi. Both of us were in the House, Stewart and myself. There are things they agreed at that particular time. There are things they disagreed. Those they disagreed with never made it to the floor of the House. It would be a good time to begin with that particular report and see what are the lessons that have been learned now, having undergone 2 elections subsequently after that committee. So don't look at it as if from the get-go we will never agree. There are only things that our colleagues are asking of us, which unfortunately
we have. My question. What are the non-negotiables?
It's not. Don't call it non-negotiable. Actually, what you need to for us is not something that's possible. When you tell us go open the servers, as who? We have no control, we have no key, we have no ability. IBC is an independent constitutional commission. We have no control over their operations. If our colleagues, for one reason or the other, they feel that they have a problem with IBC, well and good. Please take your discussion to IBC. This is a parliamentary committee which unfortunately cannot direct, not even the president, powerful as he may be, can direct the IBC, IBC on what to do with the servers.
Okay, let him come in. You can respond to that.
You see, there's one thing we have to look at here. The people who are controlling the instruments of power. These are the people we are saying, open up the servers. Or we direct to those institutions which control the servers to open them in the presence of all Kenyans. We have a representative
nearly
there.
9 months after the election, to you that still remains a valid...
It's a valid argument. It's a valid argument, and we believe once it is opened, then we shall know. Secondly, what we are saying is, when other players come in, that's when in-depth of knowledge is obtained. We can get some better suggestions than what we think we can get from Parliament. So Parliament should not be an end process. That's what we are saying. What's wrong with even members of the civil rights group coming in? There's nothing wrong with that.
Can I read a question from a viewer this evening to you? Robert Tandera is asking, please ask the Senate Minority Leader, is the Azimio team trying to force its way into government?
No.
Well, you can respond to them.
No, we are not forcing ourselves into government. Not at all. We are not forcing ourselves into government. And take it from me, that is the position of Azimio. That we are not forcing ourselves into government.
Majority Leader, what is this blackmail that your side is warning their representatives about? Don't fall prey to blackmail.
It's them all the time. They're saying we are trying to get into government. We are trying to get a handshake. We are not trying to get, none of this is our interest. We are interested in what Kenyans should be able to get.
It is idle talk that we hear from our colleagues, statements like, oh, if you don't open the servers, we'll go back to the streets, and many such stories that we are used to, because we have dealt with Azimio long enough. Same characters, they never change tact. So we know how they stock their bargain. Just my last one on this issue of server, because for me, for sure, it's completely, this is Bartok at the very least, because using what law? What provision of the law will you come and say, in strict compliance to this particular constitution provision, we want you to do this? In any case, Wahiga, just to jog the memory of my colleague and those that are in Azimio that keep on telling us about this server conversation, forget about the server. Ballot boxes, which are the primary source of data, the data that is in the servers. These guys were given the opportunity and told, you say that there was a problem with this election, please pick 46 just as a sample. And statistics is about sampling, because you couldn't open 46,000 ballot boxes. Pick 46 for us. And they picked different stations from different parts of the country. They were brought before the Supreme Court. Ballot papers were counted, one after the other. They all tallied. From ballot box number 1 up to the 46th one. It is in the filings that were signed in the Supreme Court. Their lawyers considered and said, yes, we watched that particular exercise. It is after that that the judges in the Supreme Court said, my good people, I'm afraid you don't have a case. It is clear that this election was conducted in strict compliance with the law. And that rested that particular matter. You know, Stewart, and you are, first of all, not only a lawyer, but you are a retired judicial officer. It's embarrassing, and you're making a mockery of your entire career that you worked so hard to build, to come back and tell us that after a competent court of law, no less than the Supreme Court of our country, has spoken on our matter, that you can create a kangaroo mechanism through which you can circumvent that which they found themselves and spoke to. I mean, it's a mockery of a career that he worked so hard to build.
As at that
Therefore,
time,
allow me just
as at that time, he's not concluding.
In 10 seconds,
that's the way he is, and I interrupt.
But I never interrupted.
I know, Chirio. Okay. Now, you'll not finish. Let me tell you. You know, there's some information which were never brought to the Supreme Court judges. An issue like a whistleblower, someone who was working right inside there, came up with damning information in such a way that there is no way we could say that these votes, the way they were counted, they were true. They must have been interfered with. And that is why we are saying, with this kind of information which we have now, open the servers. I don't know what's so difficult. I don't know what's so difficult.
So how will open?
You are looking at me as if
I'm trying to understand how Senate will prosecute this. Will you have ad hoc committees?
It's not the Senate alone.
The bipartisan.
We are saying this
committee.
Bipartisan approach to this issue.
Yeah.
Quite a number of people should become players here. Should be able to witness all this.
For now, what we know is that a bipartisan parliamentary approach
which we have already in place.
Has been put in place. So will we have ad hoc committees?
Let them do their work.
Discuss cost of living.
Yes,
Another committee will discuss the opening of the servers. How will it?
All of them will discuss almost the same thing. All these things are together.
So the 14 members plus maybe technical teams will discuss the issues.
Yes.
Not to split.
Right now, we are saying 7 members from this other side and 7 members from this other side will sit together. We'll look at whatever has been brought forward. After that, they will engage in a bipartisan manner. Whatever will come out of that discussion, they will come back now and explain back to us. I don't sit there.
The plenary to Kenyans?
Yes, to the Kenyans. By explaining to the Kenyans is that they will report to Azimio, which is not going to be a secret. And therefore, we shall be able now to give them more information as how they should go about with those points they have decided to
agree. Now let me give him time, because you asked for time, and let me give him time. And tell us give us timelines now, if that's how it will work. Do you have any timelines?
There are typical timelines of a parliamentary process. Maybe it could be a month, 2, 3. Who knows? Could be longer than that, because at the
sounds
end of the
a bit
day,
open-ended.
It could be less. I don't know how you could do a law in less than 30 days.
Okay.
Stewart. But remember, apart from this conversation on IBC, and I like what my colleague, because we are all doing this in the greater interest of a country, and therefore it shouldn't appear as if we are spoiling for a fight even before the real conversation begins. Because I hear the things that they are proposing, and I've said that some of the things that they are proposing either are impractical for us, or we don't know how they intend to resolve them. Of course, speaking about the cost of living, we will be more than glad to educate our colleagues from the minority side on what policies and measures that we put in place as a government at 6 months.
Okay. Pause. I'm told we have a challenge with your microphone. Give us 1 minute. Let's just get that fixed. Even as I cross over and just hear from Stewart, and we'll just get it on that. So you were basically talking to us about how you see it playing out. What timelines do you envision? You say you want a shorter period.
Yes, we want a shorter period.
Well, give us a suggestion. What is the party's proposal?
Well, our party hasn't taken a time frame as such, but we are saying this exercise must be done within the shortest time possible. And the shortest time possible could take maybe about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month. Should be at least a month should be quite okay. but not more than maybe a month and a half or 2 months, something like that.
Are you confident, Minority Leader, that a parliamentary process will fully deal with a political problem? Because the issues you're laying
everybody is interested to make sure that this bipartisan approach to this matter, will work. That's where the main hope of the Kenyans are. That's why we are talking to one another. And that's the purpose of having this bipartisan talk. Me and Aaron are very, very close friends. But when it comes to party issues, that is where everybody takes a position.
For this,
but when we take a position, we also take a position in the interest of the country.
For this one,
I don't take my position to be satisfying myself, but on behalf of the country. We are saying we are proposing we are proposing issues which I believe they will propose theirs, and then our parties will sit on the other side, and on our side they will sit and they will discuss whatever they arrive at. Whatever they arrive at, definitely they'll have to come and report to us.
Okay.
When they come and report, and then we shall be in a position now to know what is the next stage that we are taking.
So, Majority Leader, I don't know if it's a month, 2 months, 3 months. Will this bipartisan team draw allowances from these sittings?
No, not. I don't think so, because, I mean, they're just doing part of what they're paid to do. Parliament is about legislation. This is a legislative process. Remember what I said, and this is a point I was trying to make earlier, that part of the things that our colleagues in the opposition are raising about our administration, there's this conversation about the cost of living, and I've said we'll be more than glad to perhaps explain to them so that they can understand what our approach to this issue is, and how perhaps in the last 5 or 6 months we've been able to, though not substantially, but significantly bring down the cost of basic items such as unga and cooking oil and other commodities that Kenyans are able to buy, though not at the price that they wish, because, of course, given inflation and we had difficulties of drought, there are policies that we have put in place which I believe are beginning to bear fruit. So some of these things you wouldn't even need experts to advise you. We are the experts ourselves, we'll be willing to guide them. But of course, over and above that, Wahiga, is that on our side, there are also proposals which we'd wish to interest our colleagues from the minority side. You know very well that my side of the political divide, the side of the majority, we had a parliamentary group meeting, and there are proposals that came to us to Parliament. And I wrote to the Speaker of the House in response to what our party leader had requested us as Parliament to consider on a few issues, which I think if our colleagues from the minority side will be keen to indulge us. Number one, particularly will be on the gender question, which you know for a long time, as it stands today, by the time Chief Justice Maraga left office, he left a letter to the then President asking him to actually dissolve Parliament.
That's correct.
It's not properly constituted. And we have a mechanism which we think if our colleagues from the minority side will be willing to listen, this will be an opportune time for this committee to have a conversation on. We have our proposal on what to do with the CDF, the long-standing dispute between our colleagues in the National Assembly and the judiciary. The judiciary holds a firm position, and rightfully so. We agree with them in the Senate that CDF as constituted today is illegal unless a mechanism is found either to amend the Constitution to provide for it, or structured in a way that members of the National Assembly are not involved in its day-to-day operations. That will be a good time to have that conversation. On our side as a Senate, we have our own challenges as well, which we want to ask our colleagues, and this is part of what was contained in the presidential memorandum, that number one, this long-standing dispute between Senate and National Assembly with regards to Article 110 of the Constitution, the whole question on money bill and consent between the two speakers, that this will be a perfect time to properly script this conversation. Of course, Senate Oversight Fund continues to be a thorny issue. For 3 terms, senators continue to go about their duties, but only with a salary and nothing else to be able for them to go about their duties. Of course, lastly, was a proposal for the creation of the office of the opposition leader. You don't have to do this because of a particular political player in mind. We feel that that's what sometimes maybe blinds our colleagues on the minority side. But we do this for posterity and say those are perhaps maybe a constitutional failure on the way this, by living out this particular office, you find yourself in a situation where, for lack of place and time or where to exercise your duty as an opposition leader, you find even a member of not in society, such as a retired prime minister, having to go and do his politics at Bunge la Mwananchi, either in Juvanji Gardens or Jacaranda, because of basic issues which you can sort if we come to Parliament and have a conversation. Therefore, we too have our set of proposals, which our colleagues, because this is a bipartisan conversation, are free to either agree with us and say, yes, that one we can talk about, or like we are telling them in the ones for servers and the rest, that those ones are a no-go zone.
How wide-reaching a constitutional review could this become if both sides present multiple proposals? Wide-reaching or wide-ranging could
which is
the amendments to our constitution be? From what I'm hearing from both of you.
At least at the parliamentary level. Because remember, if it gets to a point where both sides have agreed, and this is a situation where if you come to Parliament and raise a two-thirds, the numbers that are required to have an amendment to the Constitution by parliamentary initiative, then we could agree on those particular terms. But, like I have said, it boils down eventually to the first meeting that we'll have between the two teams from both sides of the divide, where we'll now agree and say, of all the issues that we've raised, we are comfortable with discussing A, leave out B, leave out C, D, we may have to go back to either our PG or the same, and they give us feedback on the same. So we envision this process maybe to begin perhaps before the end of the week, to have a conversation with our colleagues from the side of the minority at leadership level first, to set the terms and say, okay, so when do these committees meet? How do we give them life? Because you have got to find a way of introducing it to Parliament. I'll have to move a motion. He has to second it. Finally, when we agree on what will be the context and the terms of reference of this particular committee, our colleagues from the leadership also on the assembly side, Kimani, Ichungwa and Opio Wandai, will have to do a similar motion so that it's owned by Parliament. Then it becomes a parliamentary process, after which now the difficult work begins. So I do not say that it's all gloom. This contestation that you see between my counterpart and I is part of what will form the first basis of a conversation. Like you expect in any negotiation, there will be things that you'll agree, and there are things that you'll, from the get-go, say, no, this is not a possibility.
All right. Come in before I read some feedback.
Okay, fine. All I wanted to say was maybe in support. We have no objection at all with whatever proposal that they have. Once they bring their proposals, we shall look at them. They will be looked by, first and foremost, our team will look at them. And then whatever outcome that comes in on a bipartisan issues, and we shall approach it in the same spirit to ensure that, that whatever we think is good for the nation, we shall endorse. Whatever we think is not good for the nation, we shall be able to tell them. Whatever we can discuss and agree on a middle ground, we shall also approach it the same way. And I think, to me, I'm not seeing any difficulties in all that. Because the moment we get good guidance, the moment we get started on these issues, then all I know, we shall be on the right track.
You shall be on the right track.
Yes.
I think my final question to you, as I give you both a chance for a parting shot, is what assurances can both of you, as significant players in Senate, as a majority and minority leader, give Kenyans that political interests in Parliament will not cloud possibly a chance to make it count for how we got here? You know, and it's sad we have to reflect on this, for the lives lost, for the businesses, everything, the price that was paid to bring us to this point. Assure Kenyans that it will not get lost in politics.
Well, at least from our side, as a majority side, you haven't had us issue any ultimatums. We come to this conversation table with clean hands. with clear intention and purity of purpose and heart, knowing that we are doing this in the best interest of the country, because we know at the end of the day, if anything was to go wrong in this country, unfortunately, our colleagues in the minority side, in the opposition, will not have much to answer, given that they were not in administration and things went south. So from a position of greater responsibility, given that our party leader, the President of the Republic of Kenya, took an oath of office, and now, despite the fact that he is a key player in the fact that he has a party to lead, he still has to carry the father figure of being president of the entire country. We come to this table with open arms and willing to listen. That which is possible, we shall do. Unfortunately, the very firm instructions which I got this morning from our Parliamentary Group meeting is not to try anything that is outside the confines of the law. That will be the only difficulty that I'll run into.
You say,
otherwise, unfortunately, because listening to some of the demands that are coming from our colleagues,
but of course
I do not know of any legal or constitutional provision that will allow me to go into that direction. When you hear things like servers, national accord, unfortunately, there is no legal provision that will allow them to get to that particular direction. Of course, it will be good also for our colleagues in the opposition to come to this table with clean hands. Number one, drop this business of threats and blackmail, telling us that, oh, if this doesn't happen, we are going to go back to demonstration. You know, very soon people will get tired and say, okay, the roads are still there, the stones are still lying there. Please go and find them where you left them. We don't want to get there. Let us be adults. Once we have said, okay, let's keep calm and have a conversation as adults in the best interest of the country, let's pursue that. Okay. Today I saw another letter from them saying, oh, we want to begin now people's barazas.
From me?
No, not from you,
Azimio?
from Azimio generally, saying that we want to begin people's... The conversations have not even begun. What are you consulting people about again? Don't you guys get tired of harassing even your own supporters? That's why you keep losing your supporters.
All I want to say,
because how you treat them.
now,
Minority leader coming now.
I know him very well. So he's my young brother, and we are friends. Now, what I was just say, what I'm just about to say is that we shall approach this bipartisan issues with an open mind. We are not threatening anyone. They are there for us to discuss.
There's no threat to go back to the streets if within a certain time...
We are not threatening anyone by placing those conditions, whatever we want, we are laying them down. They are going to be discussed by the parties. We don't know what they're going to discuss. We don't know what they're going to agree. Each party will follow its own instructions. And once those instructions have been given, the two parties, on a bipartisan approach, will sit down and try to negotiate and find a ground. That is the first instance. And we believe and trust that it's going to work. I have confidence that in the first instance, when they sit, they will agree on the modalities. This country is more important than all of us. The idea of just thumping and saying others are wrong and others are right, don't go back to the street, and if you go there, you are going, there are stones there, you can take them, you can do whatever. No, don't that's not the way we approach bipartisan issues. I believe if we sit there as brothers, as Kenyans, we have an interest in this country. We know this country is greater than all of us. It's much more greater than even the president himself. Okay, and Baba and the rest of our principals who are in charge of these parties, of Azimio, and of course Kenya Kwanza. This country has to move on. And this should not be our time now to destroy the country.
Okay.
We are saying we must do everything we can to ensure that there is peace in this country. And that is the spirit we are approaching this bipartisan approach.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that's a good place to leave it. It's very rare when a show with two politicians ends on such a conciliatory note, but I think there's been good representation from Senate this evening. Joining me has been Stuart Madzayo, Minority Leader in the Senate. Senator Kilifi, thank you for your time tonight. Together with Aaron Cheriot, Majority Leader in the Senate, and Senator Kericho as well for your time. They are saying they are moving forward with clean hands, and within the next couple of days, Kenyans will have a better understanding of what lies ahead in this bipartisan approach that was agreed upon. President William Ruto and, of course, Azimio leader Raila Odinga, when they made those announcements on Sunday, putting on hold the protests and anything else as the matters or the attention now switched to Parliament, joint sort of discussions moving forward on that. And of course, here we'll keep you updated on those updates as and when we get them. But this is where we wrap up the broadcast. Thank you so much for having tuned in on this 11th day of April 2023. On behalf of everyone who's contributed to make this broadcast possible this evening, thank you so much. Our sign language interpreter tonight has been Njoki Shege. We'll see you soon. My name is Wahiga Mwaura. Goodbye for now.